Hi everyone, thank you for attending my presentation today. And my presentation focused on my recent dissertation in using guidance and data to inform the instruction of multilingual learners. It is focused on the Tier 1 research and scaffolding supports that I created and provided to elementary schools in the district to enhance the instruction of multilingual learners. I am Dr. Suheli Solano. I am the English Learner Coordinator in Brandywine School District. During my dissertation, my advisor was Dr. Sharon Walpole, and I worked closely with Sharon Walpole to create some of the supports that were created and some of the work that I did. My committee was Dr. Christina Boddy, Dr. Michelle Koch, who's my director and supervisor in Brandywine School District, and Dr. Stephanie Del Tufo from the University of Delaware. Today I share with you the presentation I did for the State of Delaware Multilingual Learner Conference in April of 2024. I share an overview of my educational leadership portfolio, the research that I conducted to inform the work that I implemented, and to create the Tier 1 English learner supports that I created to support Tier 1 instruction in elementary school. I also created a document that will share it with administrators to inform and guide the scheduling of English learners in the classroom. But first, I would like to share a bit about myself. I am originally from the Dominican Republic. I migrated to the United States in 1992. And when I came to the US, I was in 8th grade at that point. My family is composed of language learners. For example, my dad and myself are both English learners as a second language. Spanish is our first language. And my kids, who were born here in the US, Spanish is their second language. They were both lucky enough to attend a bilingual school in the area, Lewis Elementary School, and where my son attended from K through 8th. He went all the way up to middle school, and my daughter attended the K through 5 program at Lewis Elementary School. My educational journey began back in my home country in Jamasa, where I started school at the age of 4 because my family saw that my aunt, who was a year older than me, was about to begin school. We were always very close, my aunt and I, and because of that, they thought that starting school with her would be the greatest idea. So I was the youngest in that grade level, but in 1992, when I migrated to the US, I was an English learner at AI Middle School in the state of Delaware. From there, I graduated high school, and I attended several colleges and universities in the state of Delaware. I attended Delaware Tech because I was not unsure, and a lack of guidance sort of pushed me to start at the community college. So from Delaware Tech, I then went on to complete a bachelor's degree at the University of Delaware. I completed my master's degree in school counseling at Wilmington University, and just recently in 2023, I went back to the University of Delaware, where I finished my educational doctorate. I am certified in teaching English as a second language. So my professional history in Brandywine School District began in 2017. I was an ESL teacher at the high school level, and then in 2010 I became a full-time coordinator for the district, where I was implementing fully programming for K through 12. This is my 16th year in the district in Brandywine, and just recently through Brandywine I was able to complete my doctoral degree at the University of Delaware. So there are several responsibilities that I have as a English learner coordinator in the school district. I serve a total of 16 schools where I oversee English learner teachers, tutors, and a bilingual parent liaison that provides interpreting and services to non-English speaking families. I coordinate student identification, English learner assessment, and accommodations for the district. I support the implementation of instructional services and professional learning across the district when it comes to English learners. And I collaborate with administrators, teachers, and the curriculum and instruction team, which is the unit that I work out of, to provide assistance to the schools. My educational portfolio, the title was Using Guidance and Data to Inform the Instruction of Multilingual Learners. I've focused on increasing the number of English learners that were meeting the Department of Education's English language proficiency target, and I aim to improve the performance of Smarter Balance from students that were taking Smarter Balance in the district. I aim to do this by using guidance and by using data to improve the instruction that was provided to English learners. So why guidance? Why do I believe in guidance? So when I looked up the definition in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, they define guidance as the act or process of guiding, or the direction provided by a guide. It is also the process of controlling the course of a projectile by a building mechanism. If you look at both the first and the second definition of the Merriam-Webster dictionary, these are the two definitions that I sort of focused on when I was creating the guidance that was provided to teachers and administrators. They define data as factual information such as measurements or statistics used as the basis for reasoning, discussion, or calculation. And they define data as information in digital form that can be transmitted or processed. So both, again, definition number one and number two are the two areas of focus that defined the data, the way I use data to inform the instruction of language learners. But why guidance and data? Well, I believe that guidance supports the fulfillment of responsibilities when we are trying to guide educators and administrators in using best practices to service multilingual learners. It offers clear direction and it ensures consistency by fostering a student's growth. So, for example, I believe that when teachers are given professional development, they should not just be given professional development, they should also be guided through, given guidance that they can refer to when they are no longer sitting in the professional development. That sort of offers a clear direction because when they are ready to implement what you just presented as an educator, then they are able to go back and follow that guidance that is given to them, and which builds the consistency that I am referring to. And then when it comes to data, I believe that data provides insights into student progress improvement areas. It allows for targeted interventions. So when a teacher is making decisions about how they're going to proceed in teaching a specific student, the use of data targets what the student needs and it enhances the effectiveness of that instruction. It also maximizes student learning outcomes as a whole. But why does this matter? Why did I focus in guidance and in data? And why did I aim to improve the instruction of multilingual learners? This matters because English language proficiency targets account for 10% of a school report card rating. So whenever a school in the state of Delaware, for example, has 15 students or more within a school, 10% of the report card rating accounts for those ELs. It matters because equitable practices allow English learners to acquire language skills in a timely manner. We should not be negating students those equitable practices that will enhance their success academically. And it also matters because proficiency in smarter balance demonstrates that English learners are ready for college and careers and beyond. To improve the instruction of multilingual learners, I described evidence-based instruction. I've aimed to improve the data-driven decision-making that existed within the district. I improved the understanding of language and reading instruction for the district, and I defined what a multi-tier system of support looks like for English learners within our district. This all improved teachers' understanding and administrators' understanding, and I did this by implementing professional learning in the district. My educational leadership portfolio began in 2019. I began taking courses for at the University of Delaware, and then in 2021, I was able to administer a teacher survey to all educators that were teaching English learners in the classroom. I revised and developed the guidance documents based on the 2021 teacher survey that I administered. I implemented professional learning based on the findings of the teacher survey. And then in 2022, I re-administered the same survey by randomly sending it to anyone that was teaching English learners that year to see whether or not the guidance and the professional learning that I implemented had made a difference in the district. My findings, for example, in this slide, you will see that this particular slide reports the access to data, how EL teachers and content teachers reported they felt before the first time they completed the survey and the second time they completed the survey. This particular slide shows that EL teachers' confidence in accessing English learners' needs increased. It increased in how they knew where to find demographic information. It stayed the same for accessing information in one of our systems or assessment data in iTracker, and it increased for how confident they were in accessing language proficiency levels. When it came to content teachers, you'll see that they reported an increase in being confident about assessing EL student needs, assessing demographic information in eSchool. Their assessment also increased where how comfortable they felt in assessing their assessment data for English learners, and it also increased when it came to assessing, but it stayed the same for the in assessing language proficiency for students in the district. And when it came to content teachers, how they felt about scaffolding English learner instruction, we see an increase in all three areas here. So for newcomers, they felt more confidence in being able to scaffold newcomer, intermediate, and advanced students when we compare the pre-survey and the post-survey in 2022. Here it shows how EL teachers felt about scaffolding. So the first time I administered the survey, you'll see that EL teachers were not as confident in scaffolding newcomer instruction. That was 37%. It went up to 80% after I implemented the survey and provided the guidance. It stayed about the same for intermediate students, but then it jumped again for advanced English learners. When it came to co-teaching, in understanding what co-teaching looked like and understanding whether or not their EL teacher was co-teaching, you would see that specifically in co-teach, content teachers reported that only 13% of their teachers were co-teaching, and that increased to 30% in 2022 when they took the survey. When it came to collaboration and how EL teachers felt about collaborating, you will see that there was an improvement as well in their confidence level about attending needs assessment meetings that includes content teacher, completing student educational background information, planning the instruction of English learners, and determining and providing support for English learners Tier 2 and Tier 3 reading intervention. There were many things that I learned throughout my educational portfolio, but I wanted to highlight three key findings that I learned throughout my journey. I learned that consistency is key. English learners benefit from improved use of assets, from resources, and from assessment data that is provided to teachers that can influence the learning of English learners. I learned that collaboration matters because professional learning increases the knowledge, the understanding, and the practices that we will provide students within the classroom. And last but not least, I learned that providing ongoing feedback can address needed areas. So for example, I conduct a school visit where I will come in and use the guidance I had created and shared with teachers to have discussions about how they could better implement that guidance within the instruction of Tier 1 when they were co-teaching. Next, I will be going over the research that I conducted to inform the guidance and the professional learning that I offered teachers during my educational learning portfolio. I began by multilingual learner assets and the importance of these for ELs. I researched instructional programming, the use of data to teach English learners, language and reading instruction of English learners, and the collaboration. So when it comes to English learners and their assets, we have to be aware that English learners bring a wealth of assets to the classroom. The WIDA guiding principle that was recently, that is part of the 2020 WIDA standard framework. The WIDA guiding principle number 1 states that multilingual learners, languages, and cultures are valuable resources to be leveraged for schooling and classroom life. Leveraging these assets and challenging biases help develop multilingual learners' independence and encourage their agency in learning as well. It is stated that by focusing on multilingual learner assets, educators send a powerful message that students from diverse linguistic, cultural, and experiential backgrounds contribute to our classroom and to communities around us. So we have to remember and think of assets as student areas, not deficiencies. ROE 2019 discusses assets as forms of knowledge related to a student's culture, community, and a family. He suggests that we should learn about student assets and engage in sharing those assets with others. That we should use students' background to promote an asset-based learning environment in our classrooms and across the schools. That we should celebrate and incorporate student languages within the classrooms and within the instruction. And that teachers can use students' language abilities to facilitate language and content learning at all times. Again, we should not see assets as deficiencies. These are all positive areas that kids bring to the classroom that we should use to inform the instruction of our learners. And what are those assets? Well, the number one asset we always talk about and refer to is, of course, language, but there's also the learning practices of learners, family practices that they bring to us, the language proficiency, not just English language proficiency, but also their native language proficiency. And prior academic knowledge is another area and asset that we should consider and use to teach our English learners. Next, I will go over the research related to English learner programming. In my research, I found that bilingual programs are the ideal setting for ELs. It is no wonder that an asset-based perspective of bilingual programs and their influences on English learners has gained popularity over the last few years. As part of my research, I researched the most common English learner instructional programs that exist across the US and nationwide. So I learned that bilingual educational programs, which is instruction in both English and another language to support bilingual proficiency, is one common program that it's taken off in many states right now. Content-based language instruction integrates language instruction with content learning, promoting language acquisition through meaningful academic experiences. There is also co-teaching, which involves two or more teachers collaborating to deliver the instruction of English learners by allowing for differentiated support and enhancing the learning opportunities for all learners. And there's a newcomer program that some school districts get to implement, which provides intensive language support and orientation for recently arrived English learners with limited proficiency. There are pull-out instructional programs where English learners are temporarily removed from the mainstream classroom for specialized language instruction. There's push-in support, which provides language support within the mainstream classroom to aid English learners' participation. There's sheltered instruction observational protocol, which is often referred to as the SIOP model, which combines English language development with content instruction using modified strategies to make academic content accessible. And there is also a commonly used program called Structured English Immersion, where English learners are offered intensive English instruction within the mainstream classroom. So it was interesting because during my presentation, I got to ask everyone. There were about 100 participants online, and I did get to ask, which EL instruction program does your school use the most? And about 40% said that they did pull-out instruction. There was a lower number for newcomer programs, and then a lower number for co-teaching as well. From the research and from what I read, um, I ended up creating guidance to inform the instruction of English learners based on these three particular programs. So dual language immersion programs, co-teaching, and pull-out. And in order to maximize the implementation and the participation of newcomers or English learners in the dual language immersion programs, um, what we basically did was I trained secretaries to register English learners in the program as they came in to us from being newcomers, and to promote the dual language immersion program so that they could understand the benefits and what it looks like in the classrooms, and have those discussions with other with parents when they were registering. I provided guidance and professional learning about co-teaching, and where the English learner and the content teacher both attend ELA training whenever we are implementing new ideas or new initiatives in the district. This idea of making sure that English learners are participating in professional learning fosters a collaboration effort among both EL and content teacher. And I also specified what pull-out instruction looked like in our district. So to make sure that only newcomers were being pulled out of the classroom to receive accelerated English language development instruction in listening, speaking, reading, and writing as they arrive to us. So we'll see that when it comes to bilingual programs, this is an area of instruction that has been investigated as early as the 1970s. So in 1979, for example, Cummins stated that students in a bilingual program can see their successes more easily, while students in English-only programs are consistently faced with their failures. This is one of the main reasons as to why bilingual programs are a much better setting for English learners that are learning the language. Some of the research studies that I researched and learned from were from Biostock, Conert, and Gwen, 2001, where all of these researchers agree that cognitive ability does not negatively impact bilingualism. They also report that the success of a bilingual program depends on the quality and structure of the program. It's not just saying that we're implementing a bilingual program or a dual language immersion program. It's the quality and the structure that goes behind it that makes the difference in English learners. That instruction in the native language does not impair the development of a second language learning. Next, I'll review what co-teaching looks like for English learners, and reminding you that co-teaching involves two educators with different areas of expertise to serve students, in this case, English learners. So co-teaching in this case involves an English learner teacher and a content teacher. Honigfield and Dove in 2016 highlight elements of co-teaching that we should be aware of. For co-teaching to be effective, there must be trust between co-teaching partners. There must be a maintenance of the collaborative cycle, which they sort of define as a co-teaching, co-assessment of student work and reflection. And there must be leadership support. Leadership has to be able to support the idea of co-teaching because it takes a specific way of scheduling students, and which then influences how the master schedule is set up to allow for co-teaching. Daily in 2021 highlights 4 different areas that true co-teaching should look like. It should involve 2 professional educators, instruction given by both teachers. They should consider and plan for students of diverse backgrounds, and they should have students remain in the same classrooms. Next, I will share with you my findings and research about data-driven decisions. Again, I believe that data can substantially improve content and language growth when we are using the data to inform the instruction of language learners. When it comes to data-driven decision making, Madinak in 2012 stated that data involves the collection, analysis, and integration of data, which can substantially improve content and language growth in students. When we look at data for students, we know that students benefit from knowing and understanding their particular data. Students benefit from knowing and understanding their own data. Data sparks educational interest, increases teachers' data use, and the students benefit because they are able to use data to set learning goals by knowing their own data, understand test results, and review their classroom work. So what do we consider data? Well, data is academic performance, assessment results, attendance and behavior, classroom observations. It can be demographic information, and for English learners specifically, it can be their language that they speak and the language proficiency that they have in their native language and their English language proficiency. When it comes to teachers' data-driven decision making, the goal of data-driven decision making is to help educators find evidence that contributes to different ways of targeting student learning. It is important to remember that teachers' beliefs matter. A teacher's understanding of data can positively influence or hinder the use of data through filters, frames, and guides. So Barnes and colleagues in 2019 defined filters as teachers' positive or negative beliefs that influence how data is perceived. They defined frames as a specific positive or negative beliefs that teachers have about data and the use of data, and they defined guides as beliefs that can positively or negatively influence the teacher's actions when it comes to data. So for example, data use is restricted when teachers' beliefs are limited and when they lack understanding use of multiple data points to inform the instructions of multilingual learners. Remember that in a few slides back, I talk about how administrators are needed in support of co-teaching, and administrators must be in support of uh, the use of data as well because it makes a difference. A transformational leadership approach can contribute to the successful use of data. This can happen by initiating and identifying a vision, norm, and goal related to data, by providing individualized support about data use, and by providing intellectual stimulation where you are actually having those discussions about data with teachers on a consistent basis. Administrators are an integral part of the support system that can foster teachers' understanding and the use of data. But in this case, collaboration is key. Data-driven decision making cannot happen without EL teachers and content teachers. So there has to be a structured collaboration among EL and content teacher that can allow for language and literacy data discussions to better plan the instruction of ELs. So for example, when we think of this, we think that there are common data usage that exists. There's goal setting, identifying areas of improvement, there are ways to target instructional strategies, and there are ways to monitor students' needs. These are several things that both the EL and the content teacher can do. But if we think of the expertise as co-teachers, EL teachers can consider and share the EL language needs of every student. They can share the language proficiency of students because they are mostly the ones that are accessing that language proficiency, and they can help investigate native language characteristics. While content teacher can consider and share ongoing assessment and benchmark results along with student progress as students are engaging in the classroom environment. So when I think of data-driven decision making, I think of data-driven as a cycle that involves administrators, teachers, and students, where administrators can train educators in data use and they can incorporate data discussions among content and EL teacher. While teachers can collect and share the student data that they collect, they can also then better understand, interpret, and analyze the student data. Last but not least, we have students who we should help independently own their data. We should teach students to understand where they are and what they need to aim for to reach the ultimate goal at their grade level capacity. There are different recommendations that came out of my research that I did when it comes to data-driven decision making. The recommendations to enhance data use in school were using literacy or a data coach, the training about data-driven decision making, the fostering of collaboration among EL teachers, administrators, and content teachers, providing structured discussions, and modeling the use of data. Last but not least, the consistency use of data. Because it is believed that the successful data-driven decision making in schools must involve students, teachers, and administrators in this cycle. Next, I will be reviewing a brief research about language and reading instruction. Because again, when it comes to English learners benefit from receiving the language and reading instruction together, not as separate. This is why pull-out is not the ideal setting for students, because when you pull students out of a grade level instruction, you're pulling them from the level of access that they may benefit from from co-teaching instead. Martinez 2014 highlights three big ideas that promote reading achievement. Number one is the fostering of academic English at all stages of language acquisition. This includes explicitly teaching vocabulary, emphasizing cross-linguistic transfer strategies, and ongoing oral language development. She believes that we should adopt a school-wide collaborative approach where we are conducting frequent formative assessments, using data to drive the instruction of English learners, and providing accommodations to support English reading. And the third idea is that we should implement a variety of instructional strategies. So this should include small groups and peer-assisted methods and deliver reading instruction within a welcoming and sensitive learning climate. So each idea contributes to language and reading development that must be targeted daily. When we look at EL reading development and the research, there are basically similarities, differences, and additional instruction that is necessary to target the reading needs of English learners. When it comes to similarities, there are foundational skills like phonological awareness, letter sound, and mapping that ELs need to learn to read in English. These are identical for native English speakers. So Goldenberg 2020 defines this in a very systematic way. There are differences because ELs experience varying levels of English language proficiency that can influence their ability to read and comprehend text. ELs also tend to have a gap in vocabulary where their English vocabulary is lower than a native English speaker's when it is measured and quantified. And ELs benefit from additional instruction where they are in need of explicit vocabulary and oral language instruction. Consistent exposure influences the receptive and the productive vocabulary knowledge of ELs, according to Vinci in 2020. So, as a snapshot, I wanted to share. This is some of the researchers that I read and investigated, where I highlight that from 2005 all the way to 2020, all of the research and that was done recommends a need for vocabulary instruction, vocabulary and oral language instruction in every area. We then have language instruction and its research, which also highlighted the need for oral instruction and vocabulary at every stage of the language acquisition. So we have Callahan in 2006, who stated that students that receive English language development instruction scored higher than students that did not receive English language development instruction. That idea that language instruction and content instruction together influences how well a student reaches their English acquisition. Exposure to grade level content is not enough. And this is because purposeful planning and monitoring are necessary to effectively teach language and content together. There are different ways that we can provide that language instruction to English learners. So, for example, scaffolding and language development are two key strategies that we must consider to maximize the instruction of multilingual learners. So, we know that scaffolding is a special kind of help that is temporarily given to students to support learning. Scaffolding provides a structured interaction between the teachers and the student that's receiving the instruction. It must be considered a student's language proficiency, and it uses grade level text to prepare students to complete tasks on their own. So there are aspects of scaffolding that I researched and learned about, where the teacher and the student begin by working together. The student completes the task with help, and then eventually the goal of scaffolding is so that students complete a task on their own. So in thinking of scaffolding being a temporary support, we should keep in mind that scaffolding is not what we aim for. It is we scaffold for independence so that students can become independent in completing grade level text and grade level work. When it comes to collaboration, it was clear to me through the research that collaboration enhances instructional practices when teachers engage in meaningful planning and professional learning. When it comes to collaboration, it was clear through the research that there are successes when EL and content teacher collaborate together because they begin to view their students differently. They feel more comfortable asking questions and they provide feedback to each other when they work together to target the needs of English learners. The level of collaboration may depend on the instructional programming, so it is driven by the program that is used to provide the English language development instruction to English learners. And it is highlighted and emphasized by ESOL teachers who bring language-related expertise to scaffold the content, while the content teacher can focus on the content learning objectives of that particular lesson. It was also highlighted the importance of data usage in collaboration because it enhances the use of data when making decisions about ELs, and it provides an effective collaboration that allows EL and content teachers to scaffold the language and the literacy instruction of English learners. There were several research takeaways that I learned through the research that I did in my dissertation. I learned that ELs benefit from receiving language and reading instruction taught together and not separately. The research highlighted that daily aspects of scaffold and vocabulary instruction for English learners are necessary. They should not be inconsistent, they should be consistent and ongoing basis. And the language reading and ongoing interventions must be carefully planned and implemented to effectively engage English learners in learning language and content together. Over the next slides, I will share the Tier 1 level supports that I created for administrators and teachers of English learners. When it came to guidance, I created guidance for about master scheduling that was provided and shared with administrators. I created co-teaching guidance that was given to EL and content teachers. I implemented professional learning to provide the guidance that was created. I implemented guidance that was driven about student and progress data that exists in the district. And I created guidance that enhanced the collaboration of EL and content teacher. The master scheduling guidance that I created was a reference guide that addresses master scheduling and clustering, considering the needs of English learners. This is an example of the master scheduling guidance that I created at a glance. So it was a one-pager that provided administrators a way to accommodate their master scheduling considering the needs of English learners, how to cluster or schedule students based using proficiency level for students, and what we do for dually identified students to consider their individual needs as well. So for example, here you'll see that the master scheduling session tells administrators how to stagger the class schedule to avoid overlap in certain grade levels. So for example, my school district uses bookworms as the curriculum in ELA. So I was sort of guiding administrators on how to schedule the ELA block and the shared reading block in a staggered way so that there was no overlap in grade levels that would allow the EL teacher to come in and then provide services in different grade levels. The clustering session provides a breakdown on how to schedule and cluster students in one class per grade level. And then it even notes here that we should consider assigning fewer EL students in the cluster class to allow newcomers, potential newcomers that come throughout the school year, to be added to the class as necessary. It also highlights dual language immersion classroom clustering and in some cases the gifted classrooms. So for example, in this particular example, for grade levels with 5 or fewer ELs, I asked them to cluster the ELs in that one class, immersion class. But if there were more than 5 ELs, I asked them to split the classes, the ELs, based on proficiency level in 2 different classes. These allowed for the EL teachers to maximize the number of classrooms that they go to collaborate and to co-teach. And so at the end, then EL students end up getting more services because we are not spread around in too many classrooms. This particular guidance document is also accompanied with an Excel sheet that provides a list of students by grade level, um, indicating where to place students based on their language proficiency level. So, for example, if we are referring to dual language immersion classrooms, then if students had to be split into two classes, I would ask the administrators to place the lower proficiency level students in one class and the higher proficiency level students in another class. That way, the EL teacher could maximize the instruction that was given to a particular class based on their needs and plan accordingly and collaborate with the content teacher the same way. The last part of the scheduling guidance identifies how we discuss and plan the services of dually identified English learners, in this case, special ed and EL. So these students are also included in the Excel sheet, and they are noted there based on the discussion form and the collaboration efforts that we do with the special ed teachers. We highlight and provide them, administrators, where to place students based on their needs. Next, I will share with you what the co-teaching guidance looked like, which was shared with content and EL teachers. EL teachers were trained in this particular guidance to help enhance the understanding of what specific co-teaching models will be used in the district. So this particular document here provides a breakdown of the main three co-teaching models that we use in the district. It also defines what content teacher guidance looks like for content teachers and what EL teachers are responsible for in order to become effective co-teachers. This other document provides a description of what team teaching is like, what it looks like when it comes to co-planning, what it looks like when we talk about shared reading, what it looks like during ELA block, and the goal of team teaching as a whole, giving roles and responsibilities of the content and ESOL teacher so that they will both understand what it looked like for both of them based on their responsibilities. The next document defines parallel teaching, with the idea that parallel teaching provides explicit content and language teaching, modeling, demonstrations, and guidance practice in small group. So when it came to parallel teaching, we have to know that parallel teaching is when an EL teacher may pull a group, the class may split in two, or the EL teacher focuses on certain students' language needs to provide a small group grade level instruction using the curriculum that the content teacher will use, but scaffolding it to target student needs. So the shared responsibility section, for example, in here shows how the content teacher is encouraged to share their classroom environment to allow for co-teaching, and some of the things that the EL teachers should do to maximize that co-teaching environment as well. The next document identified what the alternative teaching method looks like, again based on the instructional needs of the students. The alternative teaching method focuses on pre-teaching strategies, front-loading language skills, and building background knowledge. So this particular teaching method was often only used with maybe fourth and fifth graders who may not need as much of a team teacher or of as high of a services based on the numbers of the EL. So this was developed more like a consulting type of where the EL teacher can come in and pre-teach certain newcomers or advanced learners to front load the instruction that they are about to experience within the classroom. I also defined what ELD pullout looked like for us, highlighting that only newcomers were to be pulled out from the classrooms to receive specific English language development instruction in listening, speaking, reading, and writing to accelerate the language development and to sort of enhance what they can do when they come back to the class to receive a co-teaching instructional model from the teacher. Last but not least, the co-teaching guidance provides an at a glance document that identifies the co-teaching models that I just defined so that teachers could refer to and use it as needed when they were planning the instruction of English learners. The Tier 1 differentiation supports were created because there are specific supports that English learner teachers must prepare to effectively build consistency across school, to maximize the level of instruction that English learners receive, and to provide concrete supports that EL teachers can prepare and implement to effectively differentiate the instruction as co-teachers. So the first page on the Bookworm's Newcomer and Intermediate Shared Reading and ELA Differentiated Guide, this is the support document, provides a rationale behind why differentiation is important and how the document provides concrete support that EL teachers can prepare and implement to effectively differentiate the instruction. I do want to caution that although this was targeting the Bookworms curriculum, the supports in this document can apply to any curriculum that you may be implementing, because a lot of the instructional routines that are used in Bookworms are also used within other curriculums that we are implementing in different nations. The second document in this page here emphasizes how the WIDA proficiency level descriptors use these specific supports to implement those key language uses, language expectations, and proficiency level descriptors. How these specific areas of the WIDA standards apply to the level of work that we can do in the classroom to differentiate the instruction of English learners. Each of the documents were followed by the kindergarten, the respective grade level, proficiency level descriptor, so to give teachers the resources within one document so that they didn't have to go to the WIDA website or go to the standards to figure out what a student could do at different proficiency levels. So for every guidance support, I included the WIDA proficiency level descriptors within the guidance for each grade level. This is the second page of the descriptor as well. And last but not least, I also highlighted an overview of the language functions and sample language features to give teachers some understanding of how to use these specific language functions and sample features as they were planning the instruction of English learners. So this is an example of the kindergarten shared reading differentiated support document. So what I did is I broke down the specific lessons in kindergarten for each of the areas that are covered within the lesson. So for example, during dialogic reading, We know that there is vocabulary instruction. There is a time where the students are prompt for student discussion, and there is vocabulary review. The guidance specifies what an EL teacher should prepare before the instruction, and then how to provide what they are preparing during the instruction. So, for example, here you have during vocabulary instruction in kindergarten, review the kindergarten student proficiency level descriptor. Read the designated test for the lesson ahead of the lesson, and predetermine a partner for the newcomer student. During the instruction, then have the student say or repeat the words that are being taught, and partner the newcomer with a fluent speaker. So you are predetermining that a newcomer will benefit better with partnering with a fluent speaker, sometimes a native language speaker that must be fluent in the language, to never partner two newcomers together. If you look at the prompt for student discussion, some of the items that a teacher should prepare is a sentence frame for one of the questions that are being covered that day, and a frame for other days where no sentence frames may exist. And then during the instruction, then the teacher is to have the newcomer answer one question every day, that they should as the student learns the language, have the student answer more questions and use sentence frames where no sentence frames exist. So it's not only telling them what to prepare, it's also indicating what to do during the instruction. This particular document and suggestions were created and for every session of the block during that ELA instruction. During phonological, what to do during phonological environment, what to do during word study, and what to do during print and concept study within the curriculum. Well, as you know, the ELA, English Language Arts, different block of the bookworms provides a consistent routine that involves genre-based writing, modeling, a work session, and sharing for the grade levels of kindergarten through fifth. Each of these For each grade level, the instruction within each lesson is adjusted to that grade level, but my differentiated support provides a specific things to prepare before the instruction. What are some things that the teacher should do when they are preparing for the instruction, and what are some supports they should provide during the instruction? For example, we start by reviewing the student proficiency level descriptor, because we want to know what the students can do before we plan the lesson. And when it comes to providing translated materials, then there are ways to prepare a brief translation for a newcomer that explains today's lesson and what the lesson writing may entail. These were all things that as a team we got together and developed by grade level, so that one particular teacher did not have to go out and create all of this support for every grade level. What we did is as a district we split. We had teachers work on kindergarten support, some teachers worked on the first grade support, and then others worked on the other grade levels, to ensure that not one teacher was creating all of this support for the for on their own. Again, when it came to modeling, it even tells them to read ahead designated genre text for the lesson, because one thing I've noticed throughout the years is that a lot of times we are walking into the classroom and we're not reading ahead, we're not planning, we're not preparing. And that influences and hinders the level of supports that we can provide students when we are providing the instruction. So for this particular area, when it came to modeling, another example is that um, print the text for newcomers as necessary, and to prepare sentence frames to support newcomers and intermediate students as well. And then the next bullet points sort of provide the teachers what to do during the lessons with the items that they were preparing. In this particular document, you will see that this was for grades 3 to 5 shared reading differentiated support, or the same thing. It provides a specific areas to prepare and things to prepare, and a specific supports that they will offer based on what was being prepared. This document covered a word study, the choral reading sessions of the bookworms lessons, partner reading, and which again, I want to emphasize that all curriculums have partner readings. Most curriculums have choral readings. So if your curriculum has these particular areas within their lessons, these are all supports you can prepare and offer during the instruction based on the what they are learning within your curriculum. As we get to the end of my presentation, I want to um, let everyone know that all of my resources are available in a Padlet. I will provide you with the link to access the Padlet, and there you will be able to see all of the differentiated supports and the documents, including the PowerPoint that I use for this professional learning. Please feel free to ask any questions, reach out, email. My email is suheli.solano@bsd.k12.de.us. Um, I also have additional resources in a website that I've created for parents and educators of English learners, which is at raisinglanguagelearners.com. Feel free to sign up to receive my newsletters and to access additional resources in there as well. Thank you for attending my presentation and have a great day.